First pick.
Alrighty, welcome to another episode of On the Clock, brought to you by Just Baseball Media. It is time to talk about the 2026 college draft board here. We got Tyler, we got Connor, but before we get into that, make sure you like, subscribe on the YouTube channel, download the podcast on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Make sure that you're out there supporting everything we do so these guys can continue doing what they're doing. But yeah, excited to talk some MLB draft. Tyler, what are you doing over there? What's going on?
I'm just going through my pitch arsenal. No big deal.
Are you on the draft board now? Is that?
Yeah, nobody's ready for the best 60-mile-an-hour fastball this side of Mississippi, let me tell you.
Number one on our draft board, Tyler Jennings, everybody. So he is now officially on. Connor, how are things going down in Arizona?
Good, man. The weather's beautiful this time of year, thankfully. So got out to see the one of the perfect game tournaments last weekend.
Nice.
Saw a couple guys out there, and that's kind of the official start of when I know it's ready for baseball in Arizona.
Yeah, it's that time of year. I mean, you can almost play baseball any time of the year in Arizona, but you get that springtime, and it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we want to take you all through the new top 100 rankings that are now on Just Baseball website. Tyler's put an incredible amount of work into this. Blurbs on every player. We got interviews with some of the top prospects. Tyler's been uploading film on the YouTube channel of these guys. So if you want to take a look at, see what's happening with these guys' games, you can go on the YouTube channel and check that out. But we want to dive into who were some of the biggest risers, who were some of the biggest fallers, some names maybe deeper down the board that you don't know of that you should be watching. So let's start with the biggest risers. Tyler, who were let's go with three risers for you.
The first one that I kind of felt like an idiot for leaving him off on the top 50 board back in, I think it was September now at this point. Ryder Helfrick, Arkansas catcher. This is a guy that I remember in high school. Everything kind of seemed like it was there to be a successful guy. He did have some I don't want to call him yips with catching, but there are some things to work on. And here we are 2 years later, we're looking at a guy that has basically turned into one of the premier power hitters in the SEC. I think the bat to ball is a little bit fringier than some of these other guys, but as a catcher, you're not going to be well known for your hit tool. Caden Bodine's kind of the anti-norm essentially for catching. Like, he's a guy that had a ton of really good markers for a hit tool, little power. You're really looking for a lot of power, and the hit tool doesn't really factor into it as much when you're a backstop. Helfrick kind of just fits that mold pretty well. And looking back at some of the film, is insane hip shoulder separation, insane bat speed. The stance that he employed really lets him get into that power. It's pull side heavy too. He's going to have some issues with sliders and swinging over the top of them, and slight issues with high velocity, but he did a pretty good job of handling that this past year. Not as good as what Justin LeBron can do with the high fastball, but is pretty darn close. And pair that with the defensive skills, they have gotten better since high school. He's a guy that, just hearing some of the stuff that's been said about him over the past couple of months, he had a really, really loud fall. I think even Dave Van Horn had even gone and said, we haven't had a guy that have this good of a fall since Keston Herstad back before 2020. So, if we're going to be using that kind of language, I'm fully expecting Ryder Helfrick to have a fantastic year this year. He's going to slot in at catcher number 2 on this board at number 21 overall, behind Vaughn Lackey, ahead of Carson Tinney. I just feel like this is a guy that we saw what he could do last year, had a fantastic summer, and has built upon that. I think he's going to have a fantastic spring season this year.
And Tyler has basically told our college team that we're wrong to have Ryder Helfrick as third team and Carson Tinney as second team.
I'm not going to sit here and say anything about that because I had no say in it. I didn't even put in a ballot for it. So I have no say in the situation.
Love it. Connor, you have any thoughts on Helfrick?
I haven't seen him play too much other than a little bit on film, but I think that Tyler's, spot on there. Obviously it's, the power is the carrying tool. And I think this is going to be a pretty good catching class in general. on the college side and the prep side. So it'll be, I think, really interesting to see how it all shakes out by the end of the year. Because I feel like last year you kind of had an idea of where most of those guys in that position were going to slot, like come draft day. But I feel like there could be a lot more variance with this class, just depending on production. So I think it'll be interesting to see, where we're at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you got Will Brick on the prep side too. It's insane the amount of catchers in this class. Tyler, who's the next guy for you as a riser?
I'm going to go with someone from Arizona, Cole Carlon, another guy that I don't know what the heck I was thinking back in September, man. This is...
I'm angry at Will for not putting him on the preseason All-American list for Big 12. I get the track record's not there, but the stuff is just insane. Yeah,
he's a guy that I've seen somebody comp him to Robbie Ray, and I do kind of see it a little bit. He does move kind of similar to him. I would say there's more angle than what Robbie Ray definitely possesses, because Robbie May's more of a flatter release point. Carlon's hovering close to 7 feet, and we look at some of these guys recently have come through his systems. Like Trey Savage has that outlier release point being 7 feet in the air, and everything kind of just really plays off of that. Carlon's command's not as consistent as what Savage's was. The fastball command can go awry pretty quickly sometimes in a few outings. Has been up to 97, 98, sits mid-90s. It is definitely like you're going to get more ground balls than you are swing and miss from the fastball. However, the slider is the real deal here. I think he threw it more than the fastball last year in his relief role. It's more of a bullet slider, and it's going to kind of what I mean by bullet is going to admit that 0-0 kind of midpoint of the graph that you kind of look at for movement. And, shape-wise, it's not impressive. The angle he creates from the high release point, and guys just flat out do not see it. He has to fall very well. It's just really tough for guys to pull the trigger on it. He had like a 53% whiff rate and a chase rate of like 42% this past year across like a 400 some odd pitch sample, which is just ridiculous to have a pitch be that dominant in the Big 12. Big 12 is not a slouch of a conference. So, I think what happens this year, he's obviously already proven that he can be a reliever at the next level and succeed as a result of the 1-2 punch. I think he's going to add a bigger curveball. He has thrown it recently. He's got some good depth, but obviously more of like a third pitch. And I've heard reports he's working on a kick change, which would be pretty interesting. Seeing that kind of come into the fold. There's some Cam Flukey's been working on a kick change supposedly, Coastal. So we'll see what happens. But, if you told me Cole Carlon can be in the big leagues in a year or two as a reliever, I can see it. If you also told me, depending on the results as a starter this year, that he could stick at the back end of the rotation, I could also see it. So he's a guy that, I should have done better with evaluating him back in September, but looking at it now, this is definitely going to be one of the better southpaws in this class. And there's really not a ton of high-end southpaws in this class either. Like you look at the top 4 pitchers on the college board, it's all righties with Peterson, Flora, Fluky, and Gackle. And then it's kind of a toss-up from there, and Carlon's going to be in contention for one of the best southpaws in the country.
I dig it. Connor, I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on him.
Yeah, I mean, ASU's got a lot of, innings to replace for this year. I'm really interested to see how Carlon, jumps into the rotation as likely the Friday night guy. I don't know that it's been officially announced by Willie Bloomquist yet, but it's like Tyler said, the angles and things that he creates are so deceptive. I mean, the ball looks like it's coming from 42,000 feet, and he's every bit of the 6'5" that he's listed at. So and funny enough, I was actually thinking about this today, but thinking about how a changeup would really help his arsenal. The command definitely needs refinement. I think I would like to see him be able to work both sides of the plate a little bit better, but I mean, the ball just explodes out of his hand. And I think, hitters there's so many like low launch guys these days from both sides, right-handers and left-handers. So I think the deception certainly plays into it, but again, he's up to 98 from the left side. So that's going to play pretty much anywhere you put it, whether that's long-term as a high leverage guy at the back end of a bullpen or a starter. I think obviously how he handles the starting role full time. It's pretty crazy just the jump in numbers because he threw plenty of innings his freshman year, and really there was no like real number other than the strikeouts that kind of jumped off the screen. Like he cut the walks a little bit, but I mean he cut the slug in half. He went strikeout rate from like 17 to 38%. I mean, so I think that's like a good indication of how he is receptive to like pitch design and kind of tweaks in his arsenal and knowing how he can get to the next level. So I think that's encouraging. But realistically, it will depend on if he can throw strikes consistently enough to be a starter. He's got the frame to last as a starter, but it's just a matter of like, can you trust him out there for 5-6 innings at a time?
Love it. Tyler, who's the last guy on your list?
I thought about the last guy here. There's some guys that mid majors I could definitely kind of fit in here, but the guy right behind Carlon on the board, Jack Radel from Notre Dame. This is a guy I believe he's made 22 starts with the Fighting Irish and had a full season starting last year. And I definitely I had some fun with the start of this blurb. I had mentioned that he's built like a Black Hill spruce tree, which is the state tree of South Dakota, where he's from. So I had to have some fun with that. But Radel, you got a guy at 6'5", 210, so he's already got that big physical frame, has room to add more weight to it. But he's already got roughly 7 feet of extension, has a deceptively low release point, tunnels very well, throws a ton of strikes. So already there, you're looking at a pretty solid starting pitching prospect. The stuff on top of it, yes, he doesn't throw hard yet. He's only been up to like 95, 96. Really kind of sits more in the low 90s when he's going across starts. But fastball has some cut right shape to it. It's going to be a neutralizer for ground balls to lefties. It doesn't miss bats yet, but I would say with more velocity, he's going to miss a few more. It's a big chase rate getter too. I think it's like a 31% chase rate this year, which is pretty darn good for a fastball to have. He does kind of blend the slider curveball together a bit, which is something I kind of want to see fixed. Like the slider plays best if it's more of a cutter-ish pitch, kind of thrown harder in like the mid 80s, but in the low 80s, you probably go for more of a curveball shape with sharp depth, sharp bite. It tunnels out of the hand pretty well from the fastball. Has some room to really work on a changeup that he's been implementing a little bit to lefties this year. But just pairing like the size, the metrics, and what I think is going to be projection down the road and the success that he's already had, it's kind of really hard to ignore that kind of profile as it is right now. And like you can go talk about some other guys that are like his kind of size and his structure. Nathan Taylor from Cincinnati kind of fits that mold. But then you look at Nathan Taylor and how the fastball kind of plays down from what Radel's is, while also still maintaining the similar kind of slider. I think with Radel, you're going to look at a guy that pitches pretty darn well in the ACC. And, I think the mold for a day one prospect is definitely there with Jack Radel.
Love it. Carter, do you have any thoughts on Radel?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's obviously, in a conference that's going to certainly test his capabilities on a, game in, game out basis. Like Tyler said, he's got the frame, all the prototypical traits you look for from that side. So I think that, with how the college baseball landscape is now with, the transfer portal and these kind of quote unquote super teams, if you will, I think that, a lot of times you can't obviously take the pure statistical element at face value, but I think it does mean a little bit more when it's like, hey, these guys in this lineup have all succeeded at every level of college baseball, and now you've got them. It's more telling when guys can get through those lineups now than maybe in the past.
Yeah, love it. We're gonna move on to biggest fallers. So Tyler, who's the first guy on this list for you?
Oh man, I don't want to talk negatively about these prospects. I want to still kind of put them on their pedestal, but understand that there's stuff that's not working in their favor right now. And if there's one that's really going to stand out, it's Caden Bogenpool from Missouri State. I know there were people in our mentions the other day that were saying, where is he on this? And I like the fact that there are people standing up for Missouri State. I do think that Missouri State is one of the more underappreciated programs in the country. And, I'm always going to represent the mid-majors at every level that I can. With Bougainville, it's interesting because we've comped him to Jace Laviolette in terms of the size and the tool set because they're very similar. Very athletic, big kid from the left side, tons of power, swing and miss is there. It's always going to be there with his profile. The thing that really makes him different from Laviolette is the fact that he is at Missouri State. You're going to have a different set of expectations for you if you're playing at a mid-major level. And the biggest thing for me is he really does need to rake this spring in order to get, top 2 round consideration. We look at what Chase DeLauder had to do with James Madison a couple years ago. And granted, he missed half of the spring because of a foot injury. We were really going off a lot of what his Cape data was. And DeLauder had some pretty good Cape data. Bougainville doesn't necessarily have that in his favor right now. Which does stink, but again, you're looking at a guy whose carrying tool is going to be his power. It's going to be 70 power raw at best. Does it get to 70 in game? I'm not sure if he hits enough to really get to that point, but there's a world where it does happen. He did tinker with his swing last year, went through some spurts where it got better. So I really want to see that continue. I think if he does that, he'll be in pretty solid shape, but again, just having that mid-major label on you does sting. You have to produce so much more than some of these other guys in a Power 4 conference. And I just personally want to see it. It's been 2 years with a really gaudy K rate in, I think they're in the Missouri Valley Conference. I could be mistaken on that. If you want to shoot the messenger, please do. I'm trying my best here to hype up my mid-major guys, but for me, I just want to be able to see the success really continue to trend upwards. And I feel like if it just doesn't this year and he still stagnates and kind of continues what he's been doing, it doesn't really work out in his favor.
Yeah, and you've heard it here. Caden Bogopal is the next Spencer Jones or Jace Laviolette. Connor, do you have any thoughts on Caden?
Yeah, let's clip that exact line right there. That's going to be on the Missouri State Twitter very soon. No, I mean, I think the one positive in his profile is you look at the walk rates, again, understanding that it's mid-major, but it's one thing to see those walk rates under 10% and he's still striking out a ton. But I mean, there's at least enough pitch recognition that you're okay, that some of those numbers are going to be, different if he reaches pro ball and things like that. But he's at least seeing enough pitches and recognizing enough pitches that power could, still play at the next level. Yeah.
Tyler, who's the next guy you got?
I am going to go with Trey Beard, Southpaw, Florida State. Biggest thing for me, I do love a funky lefty. I think funky lefties are very interesting. They don't have to overpower you to get outs, which is, something that's you don't see very often. You're not going to find a ton of soft tossers at the major league level that have success. Beard's outlier release point being similar to Trey Savage does give him some leeway. He's got a lot of angle to the plate and stuff really tunnels great out of his hand. I remember watching him against the national team training camp at USA where he went for, I believe it was 4 shutout and was just mixing pitches well. And that's his calling card. He does mix his pitches very well and the command's great. My biggest issue is as much as that fastball has a lot of vertical carry to it, it's very steep to the plate. It's going to be more of a setup pitch, considering the angle and everything. And with the velocity he has, how much more velocity is in the tank? It's kind of a smaller framed guy. He's 6'2", 185. I think he can get in 6'2", 200. I think that's a pretty solid bet for what he ends up being at his full development point. But how much harder can you get him to throw with that kind of a release point, the short stride that he has, and how does that play with everything else? He's very deceptive and he plays off that. Change up in the mid 70s really helps him. I think that's a fantastic pitch to have. The curveball, I just want the curveball to be just one singular pitch. He kind of has a slider curveball that blends shape-wise, it blends together. Velocity-wise, they're different velocity bands that they sit in, but they're pretty similar. I kind of want to see some more velocity on the pitches and kind of see how that plays in the ACC. Because if it doesn't play in the ACC, there's definitely something going on there. Because going from, I believe they were either CUSA or they were an American with Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's one of the two.
I think they're in the American Conference.
They played against ECU.
Okay,
they're
so they're in, I think, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe at this point.
You never know these days.
Yeah, but I definitely just want to see how it plays, in the ACC compared to what it's played in the past. And can we add some more, velocity to it, make it a bit more spicier for guys? But I think right now, Trey Beard's going to kind of fall into more of like the 5th round plus kind of range for me. Unless something changes, and I fully feel like there's going to be something that does. In order for him to find a success, that he really needs to have like a top 5 round selection come July.
Yeah, and FAU is in the American, confirmed.
Okay, I was like, I'm pretty sure they played ECU at some point, so I wanted to just make sure.
We talked about this on the college podcast that the American Conference is like kind of sneaky good at baseball. Like we made the Sun Belt, we called it a kind of a Power 5 in baseball, but I feel like the American, just with a couple more good years from like UTSA and Tulane and things like that, like they could get up there.
100%. I think I would say the second. I think there's a conversation where they can be either second or third best mid-major program or like conference.
Yeah.
In terms of baseball talent, I think CUSA is up there with them. But there's a pretty solid core of like good mid-major programs that reside in those 3 conferences.
Yeah. Connor, do you have any more thoughts on Beard before we move on to the next guy?
Yeah, I mean, as a former, soft tossing lefty myself, I'll always stand up for those guys. I think that the move to Florida State will be telling. Obviously, they have a very good player development program there. And yeah, it's like if you don't ramp it up velocity wise, like how do you mix things up enough to get guys out, especially in a conference like that? It was a little bit of kind of how I was looking at like Ben Jacobs from ASU last year, where it's like he could run it up to 96, like he grabbed a few 97s, but like he wasn't the guy that was going to overpower you. So like, how are you going to attack hitters, especially in a good conference? Throw enough strikes, throw different, tunnel your pitches well enough to get those guys out. Because obviously, there's always going to be a spot for a lefty in a pro organization that is even sitting 92 to 94. Yeah. But how far are you going to advance up the ladder? And hopefully he's able to show that once he gets the ACC.
Yeah, I became very anti-funky lefty after Grayson Grinzel made me sit through the longest outing I've ever seen in my entire life. And
I was just listening to the Big Ten preview, and I heard you gripe about that on that podcast too. So you're
filmed the whole thing, and I cut it up. I thought I didn't post the video. I actually did post it, and I was like, "Why did I do that?" Because that was like a 2-hour long video. It was like 111 pitches in 5 2/3 innings.
Yeah.
If you do want funky lefties, just watch Georgetown. They have like 3 grad funky lefties in their rotation this year. Spencer Seed being one of them out of UC San Diego.
Love it.
Who's the last guy here, Tyler?
I'll admit I didn't move a ton of guys from the original top 50 down. So I guess can I choose like one of the guys that people would expect him to be higher, but I just am not fully convinced yet of that?
Is this Miles Bailey?
It's not Miles Bailey. You got another guess. You probably know who it is if you're thinking hard enough.
I'm not going to cheat because I'm in the spreadsheet as well.
I know you are. I see you in there.
You have a player highlighted, but I don't know if that is the actual player you're talking about.
Well, that was the guy we just talked about.
No. Do I? I have that player highlighted. Sorry.
No, actually, Hernandez was on the original top 50.
Well, I had Ben Blair. Sorry, I just switched it.
Ben Blair was one of the additions, actually.
Oh, it's going to be Tommy LaPour.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I am going to give my Tommy LaPour stance right here, right now. Because I know, obviously, TCU, when you look at that success that they had last year and what they have foundation wise, like Tommy LaPour is a big part of it. And for me, at this moment, I think Tommy LaPour, fantastic college baseball player. I think this is where people kind of get confused on, like, you know, he's had so much success as a college pitcher. Why isn't he so much higher on draft boards, or like with me specifically, like putting it out there? My biggest concern with him is he's 6'4", 230. He's already built like a bodybuilder, so there's not a ton of projection there. And he already throws as hard as he does, but he's not missing bats at a clip that you would expect of a guy with that kind of hard stuff. You know, he's been up to 100 a couple times already, and I think the fastball itself has a sub 20% whiff rate this past year. The changeup's nice. I think the changeup's above average. He does struggle to spin a slider sometimes. There's a couple of different shapes he'll kind of use throughout starts, and it will differ from start to start. Like he'll go from like a -4, -12 kind of like Deafy sweeper to he'll have a pure sweeper. Then sometimes you have a gyro. I'm just like, can we figure out a shape here? And, you know, I understand, like, I think this past year he had like a 40-something% whiff rate on the slider. That in of itself, if you're looking at the data standpoint, that is good. That is very good. My issue is it's low 80s. He doesn't have a ton of, you know, raw spin rates on it. I think it averages close to 2,200. I kind of just want to see a little bit more and find a consistent shape as he goes throughout the year. I think for him, if he tinkers just the arsenal enough to where, okay, he's got two different fastballs. He's got a regular four seam that has cut right upstairs. He's got a regular sinker to get ground ball outs. Kind of change out the pure difference of the shapes that he has on the breaking balls, turn it into more of like a hard cutter, and then have the curve like maybe a sweeper in the low 80s to kind of give him something that has a quote unquote outlier movement profile from the rest of his arsenal. Maybe even a curveball if you really want to go that far. There's sometimes that he does get pretty good depth on his breaking ball. But I think if you do that, I think you're really just finding ways to improve what he already is, and there's not a ton of projection moving forward. So you kind of wonder, what is he as a pro prospect? Mm-hmm. Is he a back end starter? Is he a guy that you can just put in the bullpen and he just shoves, you know, as a 7th, 8th, 9th inning guy with the kind of stuff he has? And my other thing too is if he doesn't fix the fastball shapes, he loses velo. How does that affect the fastball quality moving forward? Because it's not going to get much better in terms of projection on him. Like I said, he's already touched 100, and he's built like he can be an NFL linebacker for the Carolina Panthers. Like, I think with him, it's an interesting case of I want to see better success on the underlying traits, but in terms of what he is as a college baseball player, he's fantastic. Like, there's nobody really in the Big 12 that I would put higher than him in terms of just like one of the best pitchers in the conference.
My question for you is, will Tommy LaPour become your Ethan Petrie this year? Where you write an article and then he turns everything around.
I'm not planning on writing the article because I think somebody has already done it. Nate Rasmussen did it over at Overslot the other day. And basically that's my argument for Tommy LaPour is you're going to have to tinker his pitch arsenal to get more value out of him instead of, oh, hey, this is like Owen Kramkowski where, hey, I'm like 6'2", $180 soaking wet. I have so much, you know, muscle I can add to my body. So it's definitely a process of looking past projection and looking at what can we tweak now, because there's not much more we can kind of squeeze out of this from a projection standpoint.
Yeah. Connor, do you have any thoughts on LaPour?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with where Tyler's at. I mean, the guy is built like a Lego. And, you know, I think the positive thing is that he has shown an ability to spin it. And for me, it's like, you know, if you at least show that baseline characteristic, and maybe it takes, you know, his second year at TCU to really like kind of figure out what's going to succeed for him from a pitch design standpoint. I mean, he's got all of the, you know, energy and, you know, physical traits needed to succeed, even if that ends up being in a bullpen role. But, you know, I think it might just be literally a case of like, hey, I haven't figured out exactly what, my way of getting hitters out is going to be, but the fact that he can at a baseline level still spin the ball and, isn't a complete stiff, just, trying to blow it by guys. Like, I think that's a positive for his draft stock moving forward.
Yeah, I love it. For this next portion, we're going to just dive into some guys who are like further down the board. Should I pick them for you? And then, or do you want to pick Tyler?
You can pick them. Put me on the clock, man. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. Well, I'll pick one for each of you. So I'm going to do middle infield, outfield, and pitcher.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess we could do corner infield if we want to. But I'm going to do guys that are not West Coast for you, Tyler. And then, Connor, I'll pick some West Coast guys for you. First, we're going to start with middle infield. I'm going to go Ryan Kucherik from Northwestern for Tyler. And then Anthony Potestito from UC San Diego for Connor.
Kucherik, very interesting shortstop prospect. He was teammate to Rock Chalowski in high school. I think I mentioned that in the article, or not the article, but the blurb. This is a guy, he goes to LSU, doesn't play the first year. He goes into portal, goes to Northwestern for a fresh start, and put together one of the better, seasons in terms of pure power. Really big barrel percentage and hard hit rate is one of the best in the country this past year. And when you look at that, it's kind of an atypical offensive profile for a shortstop. When you're thinking of shortstop, you're thinking hit tool success with some power in the tank, and you can grow from there. He's got more of like the Alex Lodis or Wahia Aloy profile, where he has the tools to play shortstop, but he has the offensive profile and physicality of a corner infielder, like a third baseman or a first baseman. So he's very interesting from that standpoint. But for me, looking at the power that he's been able to produce at this point, he had something like 19 home runs last year for Northwestern. And I could totally see him doing it again. This is a guy that he was consistently on the barrel this past year, consistently hit the ball hard, has feel to lift, has feel to pull the baseball as well, which is something I kind of look for in evaluations. How well do you pull the baseball and how well do you pull it in the air? And he fits both those criteria very well. So for me, that's where I'm at with Kucherik. Did drop a little bit in these rankings from like 48 to 53, but that's minimal. And that's really just kind of like the progression of guys being pushed up the board, and him just happened to be one of the casualties moving down.
The Big Ten made it very difficult to do a shortstop here in the Big Ten preseason All-American. I created like an infield spot so I could put Maddox Maloney, and then I didn't put Kucherik in the utility spot because I was like, this is too much talent up the middle. You can't not highlight all three of these guys. And I think he kind of gets overlooked because like you're in a conference with Rock Chalowski. You have Maddox Maloney, who's also getting kind of overlooked, who's a top 20 prospect for the draft. Like it's I think he just doesn't get enough love.
I agree. I'm 100% with you.
Connor, what do you got on Potestito out of UC San Diego?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys who I feel like, when we look forward 5 years from now, we're going to be like, that was a really good player that I think people overlooked that, maybe because there's not like a flashy power tool, and he doesn't necessarily have like a surefire position at the next level. Like, those are still good players. I mean, you look at his numbers and you're like, oh, okay, he had a pretty low or pretty good walk rate. And then you realize that's a strikeout rate, so 15%, like he showed a little bit more power. Obviously he performed on the Cape. I think he's one of those guys that if he just continues to do what he does, like he'll be one of those sneaky good picks in, on day one or however they're structuring things in the draft these days. I still can't even keep my head straight about that. But yeah, he'll go into pro ball and just kind of slowly start climbing levels. He's, the slasher line drive approach, like, probably that super utility type player that is always going to have a home on a big league roster. And, as long as he continues to keep doing what he's doing, then I think he's on the right path for sure.
Yeah, the hit tool is just awesome to watch with that kid. So I'm excited to see what he can kind of do there. Shifting to the outfield, I might make this one a little easy for you, Tyler. I'm going to go near backyard here and go Tyler Head out of NC State. And then for you, Connor, there's not many West Coast outfielders on here. So I think we're going to have to go Will Gasparino out of UCLA, even though he was not West Coast last year.
I mean, hey, he went back home. He is originally from the West Coast.
True.
I remember that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll go with Tyler Head here. First off, great first name. I'm just going to be honest with you right here, right now. Tyler's a great first name. We can quote that, put it on thing. I think that would be fun. But
he got a 5 spot bump thanks to that. So
yes, he did. Yes, he did. But no, like with Tyler Head, you're looking at a lot of projection, and what I mentioned before with LaPour, and kind of looking forward to this is like, this is basically what you look for in terms of like, he's 6'3", 205. You're projecting, a lot of body mass to be built up over the next couple of years. I've had some guys kind of mention to me, like, he could be Eli Serrano in terms of the tool set that he has. It's not the same body, because Eli Serrano was 6'6", $195. But in terms of what they are, like, Head has a really, really good hit tool, doesn't miss fastballs. He walked nearly double the amount of times he struck out this past year, which as a freshman in the ACC is pretty ridiculous to do. The power has almost never really been there. It's a lot of like line drive, 105 exit velos, like the loudest, EV he had this past year. But you're looking at projection wise, you could probably add another 15, 20 pounds of weight to his frame. Probably has more power in the tank, maybe get to below average. I think that's a very valuable profile with the hit tool and the defense. And for me, like, he does pull the ball very well. I do want to see, how does he handle passivity a little bit? I think that's something that teams will be attacking him with, where he goes down 0-2 pretty quickly, and guys get to their better weapons pretty quick on him. But I think with the bat to ball skills, he's fine with that. Like, it was something like a 92% contact rate on fastballs last year. It was something ridiculously good. But in terms of defense, I haven't seen many freshman defenders basically look like they're seniors and have a ton of experience in that position. Vance Honeycutt is one of the very few that I've seen. Like, I remember him putting Elliot Avon like out of his chair at the ACC tournament his first year on campus, because he made a ridiculous play in the left center field gap on a ball that he was slotted in right field basically for, and got to it. Tyler Head's got pretty similar defense. I will not sugarcoat it. He's going to lay out the body for you. He's a very rangy defender, has the speed, has the arm too to really be a valuable defender over in that position. And just having an up the middle position like that, having that kind of defense, it's really just tough to pass on a guy of that value. Like, he's a draft eligible sophomore. Sure, he's going to have leverage, but you kind of look at this and go, he got away one time as a high schooler. Do we let that happen again? And I feel like there's going to be a ton of guys really swarming in on Raleigh to kind of look at this kid whenever we thaw out from the upcoming ice storm. So it's going to be fun to see what happens. But, again, this is a big projection play, but everything else under the hood has looked fantastic thus far. And if he replicates that, he's going pretty high in July.
Yeah, I've really liked watching his game. And, man, like you said, the defense, you can watch a highlight reel of Tyler Head just making defensive plays, and it's awesome.
It's ridiculous how good of a glove he has already. And he wasn't necessarily known for that as a prep either. That's the really weird thing, was the glove we all probably thought was going to be average. He looks like a plus defender at center.
Yeah, I love it. Let's go on to Will Gasparino. Connor, what do you got on the new UCLA outfielder?
Yeah, just when you thought UCLA was starved of talent, they finally add a bat to the lineup. No, I mean, I remember seeing him at the combine a few years ago, and I mean, the athleticism jumps out right away for especially for a guy that size. Long levered, he's listed at 6'6", 220, 230, I think. The obviously, can he mitigate the strikeouts enough to make it worth a flyer? He's a good enough athlete to play anywhere in the outfield. Obviously, the power, if he fills out a little bit more, probably projects to a corner, which is fine. But again, you can't have a guy that's striking out 30% of the time and be, an everyday regular, which, the swing is a little long. I think it takes him a minute to get going, but I think if he can kind of shorten things up a little bit, simplify it, he's got the raw athleticism to, impact the baseball. But I think sometimes maybe, his first couple of years, he was trying to do a little bit too much. Now going back to, an environment, some guys thrive in their, home environment, if you will, which obviously he's an LA kid. Maybe that change of scenery is going to be what kind of, turns things on for him. Hopefully that's the case. Obviously the tools are very loud. So yeah, this is going to be a huge test for him, being in that lineup and maybe having the pressure taken off of him and some of the eyes. I think maybe that'll help as well. So I think as long as he kind of simplifies his approach, good things are in store for a guy like Will Gasparino.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember that home run you got to him, Tyler, at Shriners. That was insane.
It looked like he was swinging a toothpick.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thing with Gasparino is he has the upside of a top 10 pick, but his floor is ridiculously low. Like, you're looking at a guy that could either be, a first rounder, or he could be pick 200 on your board. It's really just got to see how everything gels in the Big Ten. And I do agree that him being closer to home, his dad is Billy Gasparino, who works with the Dodgers, has been for a while. And he went to, I don't think it was Harvard Westlake, but it was somewhere in that SoCal region.
I believe it was Harvard Westlake. Yeah.
Was it Harvard? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to remember some of these guys, man. It's like, looking back at it, it's like, I think I remember. Maybe I do. I don't know. But yeah, I think, again, if everything clicks and he starts to really impact the baseball and continues to maintain this athleticism in the outfield with, a better hit tool, I could see him going, top 100 picks. But again, the floor is also just ridiculously low. And, if he just doesn't improve upon what he's already done so far, you could definitely see a case where back into the top 10 rounds.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to do left-handed and right-handed pitcher to wrap up the show. So I'm going to start with left-handed pitcher. Going to go for you, Tyler, Hayden Johnson out of Coastal Carolina. I was torn between two guys for you here, Connor, either Mason Edwards out of Southern California or Ricky Ojeda out of Irvine. Do you have a preference?
We can do Ojeda. Yeah.
Okay. We'll do Ojeda.
Yeah. Tyler, go ahead. Let's take the floor for this first one.
Awesome. So Hayden Johnson, probably the first time anybody's seen his name on a board this high, but I think looking at what he's been able to do this past year, you look at what Coastal Carolina has done in general with pitching, like Matt Williams has done a fantastic job in turning that entire pitching staff into what it was this past year. Looking at what Hayden Johnson did as a reliever, 26% whiff rate in the zone with the fastball. You look at the guys that, I think it was Matt Pepin, who's their director of analytics over there, put it out. He ranked like third or fourth on that list, and every other person on that list was drafted in the past year as a southpaw, which is, that puts him in pretty rarefied air. So you look at that, the fastball really jumps on guys. It's not a ton of extension, and he kind of steps into a bucket a little bit with his lower half. But he gets a lot of backspin, a lot of carry on the pitch, some tail of it too. Some guys were saying he's been up to 95, 96 this fall. Also has a really, really good hammer in the back pocket. Somebody had mentioned to me he was getting like -7 IVB on an 84-mile-an-hour curveball from the left side. Ridiculous, either which way you put it. And he's going to be the Saturday guy behind Fluky, is what I've been told. And, whether that's true, I don't know yet. We'll see what happens. We've got about, give or take, 3-ish weeks until the season starts. But for me right now, looking at what Hayden Johnson is, if we can expand the arsenal and really add on to this 1-2 combo that he already has, and he's got good command of it, this is a guy that could easily pop into the top 100 picks like Jacob Morrison did last year. I'm just really high on that kind of profile with a good fastball and has the secondaries to boot. And the performances last year, especially down the stretch, he was such an important piece for them, kind of piggybacking off of Morrison or Fluky. So I'm high on the kid. I really think he's going to have a breakout year. And I'm excited to see him opening weekend down there in Conway.
And in Matt Williams, we trust. I will
Yes.
always say that. He has done
Yes, sir.
incredible things with that Coastal pitching staff. Connor, what do we got on Ricky Ojeda out of Irvine?
Yeah, I mean, Ojeda is a fun arm from the left side. Obviously, the fastball is what jumps out in the profile. Very, very consistent his first 2 years at Irvine. But I mean, at the end of the day, can he mix things up enough and get enough guys out with his secondaries to, really kind of advance his game? From a raw stuff standpoint, like he's shown that he can, spin the curveball. He's throwing the splitter a little bit, but 80% fastball is not going to be a recipe for success at the professional level. So I would like to see him mix things up a little bit. I'm not aware if he's making any, pitch design tweaks or things like that, but diversify the arsenal a little bit. He's obviously shown for 2 straight years he can consistently get guys out with his fastball. It's huge extension out front. Not the biggest guy. Obviously, much different than Carlon, for example, at ASU, but still a guy with the raw stuff to succeed. And it just depends if he can mix in those other secondaries enough and show that he can get a true out pitch or something to at least play off his fastball that's going to help him succeed.
I love it. We're going to wrap up with right-handed pitchers. And Tyler, this time you're going to get to choose between 3 different guys. You can either pick Chase Meyer out of West Virginia, Alex Philpott out of South Carolina, or Nathan Taylor out of Cincinnati.
I'll go Chase Meyer.
Okay.
I'll have some fun with that one.
Sorry, Connor, you're going to get Eric Segura out of Oregon State.
Okay, gotcha.
That's a good one. Hey, so the biggest thing with Chase Meyer so far, obviously we've seen the pure stuff. It is ridiculously good. Has been up to 98 in shorter spurts. Will lose velocity pretty quickly. The fastball shape kind of varies a little bit, but at its best, you're getting solid 17, 18 vertical with some tail. And the curveball, I've seen some people tag it as a slider. It's a curveball. It has negative 12 IVB on average with like 13 inches of sweep. It is ridiculous what kind of pitch he has. Consistently above 3,000 RPMs on spin rate, up to 89 miles an hour with a curveball. You're talking about Craig Kimbrell in his prime, which I'm not trying to compare Meyer to Kimbrell at all, but like to give you an idea of just how good that pitch is at the college level, you just don't come across that very much at all. The biggest thing for me with Chase Meyer, I've heard people talk about him being a potential rotation piece for them for West Virginia this year. I am just not quite sold on that being a possibility right now. He posted a sub 60% strike percentage last year. The command really can go awry very, very quickly, especially with the fastball. It really does struggle to throw strikes a lot of time with that and really relies upon the breaking ball to steal strikes or get strikes in circumstances. But, I think that really comes from the fact that he doesn't necessarily stay consistent with his delivery. He kind of works out of the stretch, but then he'll do like a leg kick to where he stays in line to the plate. And then there's some times where he just doesn't use his front leg at all and kind of just drifts forward, which, for me, I want to see more consistency on that because I think that's going to unlock more strikes for him at the next level. And which I think he does need that to survive as like a potential closer too, to kind of up the strike rate. But you're looking at, again, one of the best 1-2 combos in the country, probably the best breaking ball in the entire class, to be quite honest with you. I wouldn't be shocked if somebody puts an 80 grade on the curveball because, again, Craig Kimbrell is a pretty close comparison to make with that kind of pitch. And for me, I think he's going to probably fit best in the back end of that West Virginia bullpen, be a shutdown closer for that ball club. And kind of just let the rest of the pitching staff kind of shine a little bit. They've got some pretty interesting arms, but Chase Meyer is definitely one of the more polarizing. And yeah, we'll just go polarizing on that one. He's definitely going to be a guy where people will have mixed opinions on in terms of what his future role is. But, I think, again, if you're looking at a guy who could be a closer at the big league level in 2 years, I think it's him.
Love it. Check out the Chase Meyer interview on the clock too. We did it earlier in the off season. Go check that one out. Connor, what do we got on Eric Segura at Oregon State? This is a guy I actually really like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that Oregon State rotation is going to be quite a doozy with Whitney, Kleinschmidt, and Segura. I mean, I think that kind of from a broad perspective, you just want to see Segura throw more strikes. The release traits are obviously there. The velo was up last year, but the walk rate doubled, and transitioning from a starting role to the bullpen, he hit 14 guys. Like, you want to see a little bit, that stuff reined in a little bit more. I think, we'll see how, like I said, the rotation for Oregon State is going to be lights out all year long. So can he elevate his game to what's going to be happening in front of him on Friday and Saturday nights? I think that'll be telling. I think he's probably going to be one of those guys where come draft time, there's going to be a handful of teams that are like, we know exactly how to unlock this guy. And then there's going to be another handful that are like, I don't know if this is going to fit with us, So I think the polarization, he will be one of those guys at the end of the day, but I think you just want to see him take that next step. He's got the workhorses in front of him, like I said, on Friday and Saturday night. So can he rein in the command a little bit? Can he help that fastball, play up and start, playing off with his secondaries? But the sky's the limit for a kid like that, for sure.
Yeah. Yep. That Oregon State rotation is going to be insane.
If he's your Sunday guy, if he's your Sunday guy, you've done something really, really good at your school.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that out there, man. Another thing too, that I noticed kind of like watching his film and evaluating him going from freshman to sophomore year, he's gone from more of a traditional I'm a sinker kind of guy to he will elevate and have like a little cutter basically at like 92, 93 to mix in with a sinker, which I thought was very interesting to watch because it's really tough to spin from his arm slot specifically, like spin a decent breaking ball from that, but to be able to get that kind of cutter or cutting action to your fastball was really, I think, something that elevated his game this past year, as well as being able to throw a lot harder than we as a freshman. But just looking at that, I was like, it's really interesting. You can definitely see the cutting action when you look at like his Omaha outings too, like the way that thing just takes off like a rocket ship. I think he's going to be one of the better West Coast arms in this class. And, again, having him on your Sunday is just excess goods, and having all of that is fantastic for a club like that. Yeah,
I love it. Well, that kind of wraps it up. The top 100 board again on justbaseball.com. Make sure to go to it, check it out. Check out all the film that Tyler's been putting together. Check out all the interviews. Tyler, Connor, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
At this point, we're 3 weeks away from the college season, so I'm excited to get out there. Did want to kind of touch a note too on like the stuff that's been going around with the draft being cut to 10 rounds and high school eligibility being taken out potentially, and that is. It's already been reported. It is true. There's definitely talks about that happening, and it sucks because it feels like the league is trying to cut off abilities to get jobs in baseball. It feels like they're constricting the pipeline to get into baseball, both on a player and a personnel level, which sucks. There's a lot of good people that would lose jobs as a result of it or don't get the opportunity to work in a sport like this. So, it sucks. Definitely wanted to at least address it a little bit, and we can talk about it more on another podcast. But, if at the end of the CBA talks, if we don't get a lockout or if we do, I think the draft is going to be heavily impacted by decision-making from the league itself. And personally for me, it just really limits a lot of stuff for a lot of people. And I'm just not a big fan of it. I don't know if we have thoughts on that, but I just wanted to put that out there.
I don't have any currently until we actually see what happens. Who knows? I mean, I think it's going to be hard to watch minor league baseball teams disappear from communities. Like you think about the cost of going to a Major League Baseball game these days. Those minor league teams sometimes offer and provide the opportunity for a family to go catch a baseball game. So there's like kind of bigger impacts there that it could have as well. Connor, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of to echo what Tyler said, it's disappointing. And I think that a lot of these decisions are not taking in the consideration of the long-term health of the game, if you will. And, like you mentioned, cutting minor league teams and roster limits and stuff, I've talked to people in organizations who are like, the theoretical leash is a lot shorter for players now. It's like, if you don't produce, like, we're not going to have a spot for you. And that, lack of patience robs people of, potentially the next great star in the game. And so I think that's really disappointing that that's kind of the way it's trending. Obviously, you can't really make a full assessment until things are in writing and things are official. And so a lot of these rumors are floating around, but you hope that some of the people in the positions to make these decisions are at least taking into consideration these sorts of viewpoints.
Yeah.
Yep. And I really do hope we get a positive outcome out of this. We'll just have to see what happens. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of negative drawback, essentially, both in terms of people inside the game and people outside the game. It just feels very constricting. And I understand there's cost-cutting measures to be made and everything like that. But I think at the end of the day, if you're physically limiting your talent pipeline in terms of both player and personnel, it's not welcoming, and it's not a positive outlook for the future of the game. And then, like Jared had mentioned, you're looking at some of these minor league teams. There could even be another level cutback. You see some of these leagues who we'll give Kane County Cougars example. They've had to go to indie ball, I do believe, just to kind of keep the team running and everything like that. So it sucks. It really does. And I just hope that, there's at least something positive to come from this. But we'll see when the time comes. But right now, just everything that has been circulating and has been percolating through the cracks doesn't look positive at this point.
Yeah. Well, on that sad note, we're gonna wrap up.
I didn't mean
Merry
to
Christmas,
make everything
everyone.
depressing. I apologize.
But no, this is an awesome episode. Again, if you want to see all the hard work that Tyler's put on the board, all the hard work that Tyler, Connor, and the rest of the team have done on these interviews, be sure to go to the College Baseball Show YouTube channel. Go to justbaseball.com. Make sure you're subscribed on the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed on the podcast so you're getting all the content as we lead up to the college season. Get to see those guys on the board play and just get ready for an awesome year. But until next time, we'll see you.